So I recently saw two movies that maybe not necessarily give me a lot to talk about, but two ones that I didn't end up doing full reviews for, so I'm going to be talking about them kind of bunched together now. It's Air and the Dungeons and Dragons movie, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. I just saw Air today, and I saw Dungeons and Dragons on Tuesday. I've been procrastinating reviewing it for a little bit, but I guess now is as good a time as ever. So yeah, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves is up first, and I my expectations for this movie really went up and down. When I first saw the trailer, I thought it looked really stupid. I thought this would be a really bland, throwaway, Marvel-y type action movie. But then I saw the really positive reviews for it, and then I was like, this is interesting. I actually really want to see this now. And ended up seeing it with a bunch of friends, and I gotta say, I really liked this movie. Not as much as maybe other people are. I just had a lot of fun with it, and I think that is fine. I think that's perfectly okay. It goes back to the phenomenon that I talk about sometimes, where not every movie needs to be a knockdown, drag-out masterpiece. Not every movie needs to be absolutely phenomenal. And I think this movie embodies that perfectly. I think this is the perfect, that was a lot of fun, and I could see myself rewatching that, because it's perfect in, a crowd setting. It's perfect in a watching it with friends kind of way. Maybe not necessarily paying too much attention, but still being engaged in the story. Because my major gripes with the movie come in with the dialogue and how really 90% of the jokes don't land for me, and that's a really personal thing. There were some jokes I was really laughing out, but the majority of them felt way too Marvel-y. They felt way too oh, look at this, isn't this so stupid? Oh, this is cheesy. Oh, I'm the worst wizard ever. That kind of humor and that style is just not the kind of humor I really like. And there were some parts that dragged. The movie definitely was way too long. I feel like this could have been a good 90-minute adventure movie. And it definitely felt a little bit anticlimactic at the end. Not to spoil anything that happens, but they were definitely trying to set up a sequel with what was going on there, which I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to this movie at all. I just think that this movie it was very, very anticlimactic. But I really enjoyed all the characters. I thought Chris Pine did a really good job in this thing. I haven't liked a performance from him this much in a little bit. I thought Hugh Grant was really funny in this. I think he was easily the funniest character. I thought he was really playing the smarmy bad guy really, really well. Yeah, not a ton too else to say about this movie. There's a cameo in this movie from, and I'm not going to spoil it, but it's very funny. It's a old lover of Helga. I think that's her name in the movie. Of her character, one of the best parts of the movie. Very, very funny. And yeah, the action was very on point, and a lot of really great cinematography. Not something I was really expecting, and almost reminded me. I said this in my Letterboxd review. This movie reminded me a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean, but specifically At World's End, which I think is the weakest of the original trilogy, where it's very messy and it's very tonally kind of all over the place, but it makes for such an entertaining movie. How much they just kind of go for it with the action and don't pull any punches, and just give you what you came to see and not trying to be more than that. I think that's this movie's biggest strength, is that it's giving you what you came to see. It's giving you a Dungeons and Dragons movie that is filled with a lot of action, a lot of really corny dialogue, some really good performances, some great cinematography. This is just a really fun movie that I really wouldn't mind seeing again. So I'm going to give Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves a pretty strong B. The next movie is Air, directed by Ben Affleck. This movie, I didn't have a ton of expectations going into this one. I wanted to see it at least, and the reviews have been absolutely incredible. So, I was pretty interested in it. Ben Affleck as a director is interesting because he put out 3 movies that people really, really love. He put out Argo, Well, it was Gone Baby Gone, The Town, and then Argo, I think was the order. I'm not really sure. And then he put out Live by Night. I think that movie was called, and it was absolutely panned across the board. People hated that movie, myself included. I really don't like Live by Night. That was not a good movie at all. And then he put out, I think he directed The Tender Bar last year. I think it was last year that movie came. It was an Amazon Prime original. Nobody really watched it. It was a January release. So he started off really strong and then just kind of pittered out a little bit. Like I don't know, he fell off a little bit in relevancy as a director after Live by Night. And then this movie came out and kind of is a little bit of a redemption arc for Ben. I liked this movie quite a bit as well. This was another movie that I was a fan of. It's definitely not as good as like The Town. I think that movie is great and he'll never top that. But I think it sits on the same level as something like Argo or Gone Baby Gone. This is a very entertaining and a very precise movie. When it's like for the first 2/3, I'll get into my negatives in a little bit, but it knows what it is. It is delivering a very gripping story and a very fast paced as what it should be. Matt Damon is an absolute workhorse in this movie. I think he's putting in a very confident performance and one that feels very self assured. It's Matt Damon. He's a pretty good actor. Not recently, but I think he, when it calls for it, he can give a very good performance. He works well off of Ben Affleck. What else is there? Just Viola Davis is in this movie, and she's pretty good in the, minuscule parts of this movie that she's in. Jason Bateman, that's what I was trying to remember. He was really good in this movie. He's kind of doing his like normal charm kind of thing, but in a character that works really well for him. Like this is he kind of plays Michael from Arrested Development without the jokey side, and that's kind of I don't know. I liked that angle of his performance. I might just really like Jason Bateman, but I quite liked him in this movie. This is the kind of movie where it's a lot of good performances playing off of each other with a really pretty well written dialogue, and that's just kind of the entire movie. Like it's shot pretty competently. I thought the commitment to the 80s aesthetic, but in a way that we haven't gotten, because I am so goddamn sick of all of the 80s nostalgia. It is getting very drawn out at this point. Like, please, I feel like recently we've moved on to the 90s and the 2000s, which good. But, man, the 80s nostalgia is still hanging on, and it is so annoying. But with this movie, I feel like it shed a light on something we haven't gotten in a little bit, and that's, like, more, I guess, realistic. Kind of just portraying the time as it is. And Ben Affleck is very good at that. He did a very good job with that. In Argo, and I think he kind of likes portraying the 80s as they were, and not just kind of as this, like, cartoony, fantastical bullshit. I think he did very well with that part of this movie. It's definitely too long. This is another movie that could have been a 90-minute movie, but it wasn't. It drags at the end and really makes for an anticlimactic ending, just like Dungeons and Dragons. This movie definitely overstays its welcome and gives us unnecessary closure on certain story points of the movie that could have been like encompassed into one thing. There's not the movie. You can't really have spoilers for this movie because it's a true story. Once they get Michael to sign with Nike, it really kind of screeches to a halt and like idles through the last like 20 minutes of this movie. Could have been like one thing. They ended the movie like 3 times, and I feel like that really hindered what was a pretty good experience. Like I was having fun with the movie. I was enjoying what I was seeing. It was an interesting story, and then it kind of like just it was on cruise control for a good 20 minutes with it could have been chopped down. But yeah, I liked Air a lot, more honestly than I thought I would. And it's also going to get a very strong B. I liked this movie quite a bit. So that's it for both of those movies. Big week for me for seeing movies because it's spring break, and yeah, I'm gonna watch Shazam now that I think it's available to rent. And then I'm going to be seeing the Mario movie and Renfield. So, so much coming up in April. Very, very excited. And I think other than that, the best movies of 2022 list is almost done. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.